Hey, welcome back to our program. You know, Mike, we are human beings.
We are. I thought you were an alien.
Well, some people think I've been alien, but as human beings, we're filled with a lot of different emotions. We have love and ecstasy and compassion, but we also have fear and anger and suppressed anger and guilt.
Yeah, we come into the world somewhat okay, and then life happens to us.
Yes, it does. And oftentimes those emotions tear us down. It's very difficult sometimes to bring ourselves back up. And sometimes we need someone on the outside world that helps us to recognize what those negative feelings are.
Right.
And it's our great pleasure to have a well-being coach, an intuitive mentor that has spent a lifetime involved in helping individuals recognize some of their negative emotions and helping them to grow. Mm-hmm. And it's our pleasure to have Carolyn Cousins with us on our program today. Carolyn is a fantastic individual who we've had the fortunate experience discussing earlier about many things that she's been doing. And so we welcome you, Carolyn. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. That's very kind of you to invite me. Thank you.
No, it's our pleasure. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Carolyn.
I live in the UK, on the south coast, around the New Forest area, and I work as an intuitive mentor, well-being coach, and I've been working in the healing realm, if you like, for about 21 years now, and I work very intuitively, and my work has developed quite a bit over that time from when I first started out in healing as a reflexologist, and then over the years got into hypnosis, hypnotherapy, transpersonal hypnotherapy, EFT, NLP, theta healing, and then it started to develop more as a very unique individual healing mechanism that I now offer to my clients.
Do all those past experiences like add together, or have you left some of them?
I've left some of them, but they do they do all contribute, because they're all pathways of healing that have useful knowledge. So you learn a lot over the years through treating many clients, and you learn a lot through the whole experience of there can be trends, I think, with certain clients and certain conditions. So you do learn through experience, and I also pull in some of the techniques that I've learned over the years into the sessions that I have now. So there isn't just one set way that I treat people. I pull on whatever tools that I have in my tool bag that are useful at that moment in time for that client. And everybody responds differently to different healing mechanisms, so it's finding the right one for that.
Is it their emotional state or their belief system that dictates that, possibly?
Both, I think. I think it's about being adaptable enough as a intuitive to know what the best approach is for that individual. So yeah, it can be both the emotional and the beliefs. Yeah, both. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, can you define the word intuitive, and how is it that you're an intuitive? If that's a fair question to ask.
That's a great question, actually. I wish I'd rehearsed that one. Intuitive. I mean, intuition is something that we all have. There is a question that people say, what is the difference between instinct and intuition? And instinct is something which is, I feel, is something that's handed down over generations and becomes very, like survival is an instinct,
like a more DNA type thing.
Yeah, it's like handed down from cavemen time. We have that fight or flight. It's kind of an instinctive. There can be an instinctive response to something sometimes, and I think instinct and intuition are very different things. Intuitive for me means I'm calling on that sixth sense, that other sense where I'm able to tune into, higher aspects of myself. So it's just an additional sense that we all have. It's just that because I use it all the time in my work, it's like a tool that I've managed to perfect day in and day out, no different from smelling or tasting or anything like that. It's just that I'm tuning in, I'm just using another part of me, another sense of me to tune into the energy more and read the energy.
Many individuals have that intuitive abilities, but society has oftentimes told us that if you think you hear voices, or if you think you are sensing something different, that you're nuts.
You need a straitjacket.
But fortunately, individuals like yourself and many others have helped individuals to trust what they are thinking and feeling.
Yes, certainly. I think it's important, that you do listen to your sense, and it's something that we all have, and many people shut it down because of, as you say, society. But equally, there are those that can also get carried away with the ego as well. So you can get carried away with seeing things. So it kind of swings both ways, if you like, because you can. Society says, oh no, you're nuts. We'll stick you on some drugs, and right. They shut you down. But equally, those that are open can also go a little bit too far in the other direction as well sometimes. And I think it's always important to kind of bring it down to earth as well, and use common sense as well. So I think if you're using your intuition, use your heart and your mind, not just your heart all the time. Get that balance. Get the balance between the head and the heart. So there is balance, there is common sense, and there is intuition with it. So you're using all of those together, and I think that's important as well.
How did this develop? Did you have a spiritual experience, or did you have invisible friends you talked to, or when growing up, or what? How did that come about?
Yeah, I didn't have an invisible friend, but I was aware when I was little, when I was about 8 years old. I was aware of people around me. I was aware of people in my bedroom regularly, and it's like my bedroom would fill up with people that we'd call spirits now, and that was the regular thing. I had a lot of strange dreams, although children do, and I also just had this belief that I could heal people. I don't know where that came from. And I was a very spiritual child growing up, and I never had religion forced upon me in any way. But I just had that kind of innate spirituality. And I had a lot of very vivid dreams, very strange dreams growing up, and then gradually, as you get into your teenage years, it all kind of disappears. You get into boys, you get into going out, having fun, and it all sort of went for a while until in my early 30s, I was on holiday in Scotland, and I stayed at a hotel that was run by somebody who was a psychic, and he told me that it was important that I go to a spiritualist church when I got back to London, and I did. It was my very first time, and everything really started to open up again from that time, and that was 21 years ago, and that's when things, I started sitting in an open circle, then a closed circle, and then all the intuitive side, the mediumship really started coming in then.
And you probably had parents that didn't shut those things down or squelch it.
Did I have parents
that were they
supportive, or where they didn't shut it down? They went, okay, they're accepting about things.
I didn't really talk about it. I remember putting my hands on my mother. I remember her saying she had a terrible headache, and I said, "Don't worry, I'll take it. I'll take the pain away from you, Mummy." And that was, and I suppose as parents do, they just say, "Yes, dear, it's all gone." or whatever. But I just remember having that really strong belief. I can remember doing it, of putting my hands on my mother's temples, and saying, "I'm going to take away your pain." And so she was very encouraging in that respect. But I never talked about the people in my bedroom. I never mentioned it. I don't know why I never mentioned it. I just never did. And it went on for years. And I had lots of strange experiences, actually, gradually over the years. Every now and then things would happen. But I never really thought much about it until I started opening up properly.
Would these same people be around you today? Would those be your spirit guides that you were seeing, or who do you think they were?
I think there was spirit guides, and I think they were probably relatives as well. I would think. I mean that they're probably different. Some different people that are around me today, and we have guide changes every now and then. So I just remember my bedroom being full of people, absolutely full of people.
Makes it easy to sleep that way.
Yeah, I had a lot of lucid dreams when I was younger as well, which is quite natural for children to do. But that's continued right into adulthood, and every now and then I'll have a lucid dream without trying to have a lucid dream. I will just have a lucid dream where I'm sitting talking to a guide, and I'm aware that I'm in that dream state. So yeah.
You know, as you gained in your knowledge and understanding, eventually, because of the technology, you started working with individuals and helping persons deal with fear and guilt, anger, and some of those things that are debilitating. How did you get involved in helping others? Or when, I should say.
I think it started, I mean, I was working in London as a surveyor at the time that I started going to the Spiritualist Church. And one of the first things I did at the Spiritualist Church, again, was this kind of yearning to heal people. And I had a complete change of career. I gave up a well-paid job in London and retrained as a reflexologist. And that's really where it all started. So, I mean, it was crazy in some people's eyes, but I think there's always been this yearning to heal. And when I was a little girl, I remember growing up wanting to be either a nun for some strange reason, or a nurse. So it was one or the other. So that whole spiritual healing.
Yeah. Both of them are healers. Yeah.
It was really strange. It was already there, and you know, I ended up going to banking actually, and then into surveying. But I guess that yearning to heal, that yearning to be of service, was always there. And it was when I got to that Spiritualist church that it all just suddenly started opening up again. And I gave up that job and started as a reflexologist. And then I went back temporarily and got into human resources after that. So again, I still wanted to work with people. I still wanted to work with healing, and I worked in employee relations within human resources, because I just used to get such a buzz out of working with people's behaviours again. And eventually I came out of that and went full time into hypnotherapy. And again, it was always on the mental state. It was always the programming. It was always the behavioural stuff, the emotional stuff, and that's always what's interested me. And then it's just developed over the years. With different tools and skills.
I know you work with a variety of different clients, and you use Skype,
Yes.
so they don't have to come to England and visit you, so they can meet with you. And tell us some typical clients that you feel really endowed to be able to assist. And I know there's a variety of different people, but for the listening audience, why should they come to see you? Or
why should they come and see me? My gosh, I think if they feel drawn to come and see me, then definitely come and see me, because it is about finding the right energy connection with the right healer. And there are fantastic healers out there. You've had many on your program already, you know, Ildiko and Dee and many of them that you've interviewed. Fantastic. So I think it's about finding the right vibration, the right healer, that's on the right frequency for you. And I think if you feel drawn towards someone, or someone's recommended, and you get excited about going to see them, or you feel that you feel drawn to that person, then there's something that they can offer you. So there's something that I can offer to a client who feels drawn to me, because we've all got our different unique abilities. We've all got our different unique tools that we can use, and so if you're drawn to someone, then they're the right person for you at that moment in time. What I can offer a lot of experience. So 21 years in the healing game, if you like. 21 years of experience, and that's clients. I've treated people with life-threatening conditions on the medical side, right the way through to anger and depression, or just someone that has a financial block and they just can't seem to get past it. So there isn't really a typical client. But what I can, everything at the end of the day comes down to energy and down to belief systems and programming. And if you can shift some of those block feelings that are sitting there internally in the subconscious mind or at soul level, and if you can shift some of those, some of that programming that's no longer serving them, and change it, then obviously their frequency is going to change, and the experiences that they attract back to them are going to be very, very different.
Do you see energy surrounding individuals when you work with them?
Like auras or something
Auras,
like that?
Yeah. I tend to sense rather than see it. So when it comes to auras, but every session's different with the client, and so the bulk of the session is going to be about healing, and I'm listening to what's going on and what they want to work with. But often in sessions, I can end up doing a spontaneous reading, and sometimes I can see past lifetimes or other lifetimes that are affecting this particular block that they have. And quite often I seem to be a bit of an introduction agency for new guides coming in as well. So I'm almost like a catalyst or a conduit for a new guide coming in, which means there's a change of energy going on around them. So for some reason, when they see me, I can bring in someone new for them to work with. And so there isn't really, there is a typical session. It's mostly around healing, but sometimes there'll be a reading in there, there'll be intuitive guidance in there. There will be a new guide that comes in as well. So it can be a variety of things that come in. And with some people, you can see things very, very clearly in your mind's eye. You can see other lifetimes very clearly. With other clients, they aren't so easy to feel. And I think some of it's to do with, the magnetics of the earth sometimes. And sometimes it's also to do with the individual as to how guarded they are with their energy. As well, so everybody's different to work with, but I'll whatever comes in, if it's going to benefit them in their experience in this lifetime, then it will be given to me to give to them.
So do you see any common symptoms with common problems? Like I've heard that the body is a representation of what's going on in the mind. Like there's certain things of anger that manifest maybe like cancers, or like where does depression come from, or do you see a relationship to problem and symptom?
Yes, I do. And in fact, talking about cancer, all the people that I've worked with cancer have had a lot of buried anger.
Yeah, I've heard that's repressed anger, and it just manifests as cancer.
Yeah, that's something, and that's been my experience rather than reading about it. It's been my experience with the clients that I've had with cancer and all those that have passed with it. There's been that bit that they haven't quite released. They haven't quite wanted to let go of there, and but they all seem to have cancer. they all seem to have the anger, have cancer. And you do get this, there are different belief systems that go with different conditions. And Louise Hay, has talked a lot about that in her book, and also under the theta healing method of tool. There's a lot of Diana Stibble, who founded theta healing. She's written a book on how certain belief systems match with certain diseases, and she's gone into quite a lot of detail with those beliefs as well. So yes, certainly the two correlate. Yeah, there are set things, but a lot of the beliefs, they can sort of go in and out of other diseases as well. So you can't just say, oh, you've got that condition, therefore you've got X, Y, and Z beliefs running, because there can be all sorts of aspects feeding into it. And, sometimes the soul just wants to experience a condition as well. So it's not always about finding, we do our best to find the root cause, and, we want to make life as pleasurable as possible. But sometimes the soul just wants to experience. And sometimes it is about accepting that some things we can't control. We just have to experience.
Right. That's something that we talk about in the QHHT thing, is we can take away problems that we're not supposed to learn from. But if it's there and you're supposed to grow from it, that's yours. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, we try so hard as human beings to control every outcome, and we talk about, it's funny, we talk about purpose, we talk about pathways, it's all consciously controlling stuff all the time, and maybe we don't have a pathway. Maybe we're just here to experience, and as a result of that experience, of course, we're learning the soul is learning at a certain level, and I think we invest a lot of energy as human beings into, we need to have a purpose, we need to have a pathway, we need to be on the pathway. No, we're off the pathway, we're on the pathway, and maybe there isn't a pathway there. We're just here to experience and to use our creative energy to experience in the most joyful way that we can, and whatever life throws at us, we're going to experience it in a way that's most beneficial to us if we can.
Sort of like the guy in the Pulp Fiction. He just decided, I'm going to walk the earth.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's it. It's like, why? It's like, just cause. How about depression and other things like that? Is there a commonality in that? Because it seems like talk to a lot of people that have depression and anxiety.
Well, there are different theories on depression, and again, what I'm noticing client after client after client is the connection with anger again, and I think anger is the biggest disease in the world today, the buried anger, because that seems to be behind an awful lot of conditions out there. And I know some people advocate that depression is due to low vitality. But for me, depression causes inflammation within the body, and that inflammation is caused by holding on to anger within the physical. And I found that all those with that depression tend to have this, again, this common thread of anger underneath there. I mean, I suffered with depression a large part of my life, and thankfully I don't anymore. Because I got to the root causes of what was underneath it. So I knew firsthand of what that's like to have that depression. And it does seem to stem from anger, buried anger.
So what can you do to relieve that? Is that forgiveness?
Everything, sort of comes down to forgiveness of the self at some level, because we're all blaming ourselves at some level. And it's forgiveness. I mean, one of the tools I send my clients home with for homework is Ho'oponopono, because that's just a brilliant tool of again, sort of forgiving that judgment of ourselves.
What did you say that was?
Ho'oponopono.
Okay, I haven't heard of that. What is it?
It's a Hawaiian tool. And it's the four sentences that get repeated over and over again. So if somebody's irritated you, for example, then you know that, and you've held on to that irritation, then you know that there's a judgment about you at some level. So if you repeat these 4 sentences over and over again, imagining that person is standing in front of you, maybe place your hand on your heart so you're really feeling into the sentences. And the sentences are, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And you keep repeating them over and over again. What happens is you'll get in touch with that buried judgment within yourself that's made you hold on to that anger or irritation. And then gradually the feelings will come up to be released. And it's a great way of releasing anger. And then that person or that trigger won't irritate you or anger you so much.
That'd take a long time for some people, because a lot of people are irritated.
You said,
who's next?
I am sorry, please forgive me, I love you.
I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you for that experience, and I love you.
Okay, great.
But there's a whole course on Ho'oponopono. That's just a very small part of it,
right.
The prayer, and there's lots of videos on YouTube that will explain more about it. But what I found, and what a lot of my clients found as well, that if they are holding on to anger and they're not forgiving themselves at some level because of that judgment they have about themselves, which gets projected out onto somebody else, and then they hold on to that anger. By going through that process, they're able to get in touch with that buried judgment and that buried feeling, and the emotion literally comes up and gets released, and you can feel just completely empty of that emotion afterwards. It's a great feeling to clear it out, and if everybody did that in the world, it would be a very different
that's very
place.
true. You know, sometimes we get into those ruts where it's far easier to stay in that anger mode or that depression mode.
And it just feeds on itself,
Yes,
and you get into a circular thing.
Yeah, a big ball. And sometimes we have to literally force ourselves out of that rut. And, you know, talking with individuals like yourself who can see the problem a little bit differently, that help us to get out of that rut. Yeah.
I mean, it's more familiar, isn't it, to stay in that victim state, and we're all at some level, we're all in that victim state because we're all holding blame at some level there, and you know, doing our best not to judge ourselves, so you know, and all judgment will come from blame at some level. So it's more familiar, it's more predictable, it's more the norm, and we're conditioned. You know, we also have our ancestors' energy in our genes as well. So we haven't just got our judgments, but we've got our ancestors' judgments that we're carrying, of course, within our cells as well. So we've come into this world with some judgments from maybe some other lifetimes that we brought in with us. We've got our parents' judgments, and then we've got our judgments that we're learning on top of that.
That's a lot of baggage.
It's a lot of baggage. And then we've got the TV and the news and the media that's got all those judgments going on as well. So it's, you know, it's very difficult to take yourself out of that victim state, because if somebody's done something wrong to you, you want the whole world to know about it. But it's, you know, if we could start teaching children at school about this stuff, then, you know, the next generations will create a much nicer, more harmonious world to live in.
It seems like this generation now is really reveling in their victimhood sometimes. You know, blaming somebody. You know, whether it's you know, you think it's a patriarchal thing or a racial thing, just blaming someone. But when you blame something else, then you take the power away from yourself.
Totally. Yes, totally. It is that familiar state again. And it's, you know, it's fine to get angry occasionally. And it is fine. There are victims in the world, but it's when we hang on to that victimhood, and it's when we hang on to that anger that it becomes destructive towards us. and people feel this need to hang on to it because they feel they can't forgive that person because they'll get away with what they've done without realizing that they won't get away with what they've done. They've got their own judgments to answer for. They've got their own learning to look at. But if you're holding on to that judgment, you're holding on to that anger, then that's a judgment about you. There's a reason, there's a program behind that, there's a self-blame behind that, and there's a need somewhere along the line to be listened to be noticed there as well for that particular individual. So there's always an underlying program. If you're holding on to being a victim, there's a need there to be a victim, and that means there's a program underneath that, there's a root cause underneath that, and we have to get to that root cause and find out why that person needs to hold on to being a victim.
And I notice in some of my students that as long as I have an excuse, it's out of my hands. I can put the blame there, and now I'm innocent.
Yeah.
You bring up a good point. Curiosity. Growing up, in my generation, men were told to do things, to be responsible. You have your family, you're responsible. So any problems, it really rested upon the shoulders of men. So consequently, I have been taught.
Was that suck it up, man up?
Yeah, man up, suck it up, don't discuss this, deal with the problem. Women, in their particular roles, were able to share. So I'm share more about their feelings and things of that nature. So
well, that is too somewhat a gender thing. I don't know if it's more of a social thing, that guys are more competitive.
Yeah.
We wouldn't share as much because, I'm trying to compete to get ahead of you, where women possibly have more of a community of support.
Right.
Guys don't do that so much.
Right. And I'm just curious, and you're working with both men and women, do you find a different approach that you have to take, or that men, once they become trusting in what you're doing, that they will open up? Or am I making sense?
You're always making sense, Patrick. Don't listen to what everybody else says. You're always making sense.
Yeah, it's your world. We're just living in it, right?
Actually, they're very different to work with, the men and the women. And the bulk of the clients for me have been women, because we're much more in tune emotionally, and that's the way we're made. But men are waking up, and so men are learning, generation by generation, that it's okay to get in touch with your emotions, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to have feelings. And but what I still find when I'm dealing with men is that they're pretty guarded to start with, and then there can be a lot of one-word answers rather than you can have a woman who's very talkative. And therefore will just keep giving you information all the time. So you're almost, you're given loads of information about what's going on in a woman, whereas a man will be very succinct with their answers, and they don't want to open up much because they've been conditioned otherwise. But once they start opening up, and I had one client years ago, and he couldn't even look me in the eye when he first came to see me, and he would sit on the edge of the sofa, and for the first 2 or 3 sessions he wouldn't look me in the eye. He just couldn't look at me, and then gradually he kind of came through counseling type sessions, and gradually he just blossomed. He just absolutely blossomed. So yeah, I think you're right. It is a generational thing, but it's still going on now. People, boys are still, growing up in the households where they're told to man up, and
Sure.
Yeah, and hopefully that will disappear over
I
time.
think men and women process differently. I've having been married several times. Women process by talking. They just got to get it out. And, me and my wife are fraternity and sorority advisors. So we'll have the group of girls and the group of guys on the deck, and we'll just be all talking. And the girls would just go over and over and over the same things. But I think guys process differently, and sometimes they just need some quiet time. It's not a verbal thing. They just need to sit back and be introspective and process that way.
I totally agree, and that takes you to the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Right.
And I think it's confusing for women sometimes, because men will retreat into their caves, and then they need to sit in their caves or their sheds or whatever it is, and they need to process it through, like you said, whereas women are like, well, talk to me, why aren't you talking to me, why aren't you giving me this information, let's deal with it instantly, let's get it sorted. But the men need to retreat and process it completely differently, and that is a brilliant book that would help a lot of relationships if people read it.
It is a very good book. It's very enlightening. Yes.
And we need to respect each other in the way, whoever it is and whatever their mindset, you need to respect them and accept them. Don't try and make everybody fit your rules, but you just, okay, this is the way you are, that's okay. And this is the way I am, and that's okay too. We all have different ways of dealing.
I think that comes back to if you're in a relationship, to unconditional love.
Right.
Because if you truly are unconditionally loving somebody, then you are accepting them as they are right now at this moment in time, not how you want them to be, not how you want them to mold them to be in order to fit in with your own insecurities. A lot of people will say, oh, I love him, I'm so in love with him, but he won't do this and he won't do that. And if you really truly unconditionally love somebody, then you are accepting them as they are right now, without condition.
And that goes for children too, because I explained to new parents that this is not a ball of clay that you're going to mold. You've invited a new person into your house, and they have their own thing and their own personality, and you just have to learn how to deal with them and accept them.
Yeah.
And it's not a reflection on you necessarily.
Exactly. It's very hard to do, because again, these parents, have been conditioned themselves with their upbringing, and so they've got all these programs going on, and it is about allowing people and respect. I mean, respect is such an important word. It's allowing people to be themselves in all of their magnificence. We're a fantastic race of human beings. We've done a lot of destructive things. But fundamentally, we're fantastic individuals. We're incredible, unique miracles in the way that we're made, in the way that we can operate, in the potential that we have, and to allow every child, every being to be themselves and be respected just for being themselves, and allow their creativity through. I mean, if we could stop putting our programs and our conditioning onto other people and just accept people for who they are, and respect them, and again, the world would be a very different place.
Very, very true. Sometimes I wonder why we get into the anger, the suppressed anger, all the different negative emotions, or what we think the negative emotions. And I'm just curious, since men view sex differently than women, I'm assuming. Do you feel that there's negative kinds of emotions because of either having or not having sex? Do you find that in your working with individuals that is one of those underlying causes? Their viewpoint on sex.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of women don't like sex. A lot of the clients I've dealt with, so it's not a subject that's come up an awful lot. Those that I have dealt with sexual problems, there's been a lot of guilt attached, and in fact, funnily enough, the ones that I have dealt with a lot of sexual problems have been the men. So I've dealt with a few men who had some sexual things, and that's usually gone back to suppressed guilt at some level, and it usually goes back to childhood. Something's happened in childhood, and it can be there. Certainly for the men, it can be being sort of emasculated, or they've seen something they shouldn't have seen, or it's upset them in some way. So in fact, I don't see a lot of women that come to me with sexual issues. They tend to come to me with more emotional issues. But the men that I've seen tend to have more sexual issues, which is very interesting. And when we're at that point of climax, as a man and a woman, then our heart chakras are wide open, and men can have a lot of performance anxieties of opening up emotionally.
Yes.
To climax. So I guess this is why they can't always perform when they need to perform, and when they want to perform, because the manhood for a man really represents what's going on internally in the subconscious mind, and issues of guilt and not feeling man enough again. So it tends to be men that have that condition more than the women. Yeah.
And would you say that you're one of those individuals that can help men if they have emotions as a result of sexual feelings, etc., that you can help them sort of better understand?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I don't go out there saying I'm a sex therapist or anything like that.
Right.
But fundamentally, I think my job would be a lot more interesting if I did. But fundamentally,
but you're not. You're not a. You are a coach and a mentor.
Well, at the end of the day, it all comes down to programming. It doesn't matter
Yes.
what condition you have. It doesn't matter what addiction you have. It doesn't matter what block you have. It all comes down to programming and energy. And it's important not to get caught up in certain areas, unless you're going to specialize in a particular area, which is fine. But if you treat everything, which I do, from an energetic perspective and from a programming perspective, then you just have to work on shifting that vibration, shifting that frequency, because it's just a program at the end of the day. It's just an emotional block at the end of the day, no matter what it is, whether it's cancer, whether it's impotence, whether it's anger or whatever. There's a block there somewhere. There's something that needs to shift, no matter what it is, and that's what I work with, and that's what I enjoy helping people overcome.
And it sounds like you've been very successful, and you've had many years being involved in helping a number of people empower themselves. Isn't that what it's all about, is how we can empower ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my goal certainly in this lifetime is I would really like to help people across the world to empower themselves so they can do what I do for themselves. If I'm working with people on a one-to-one basis all the time, then it's an awful lot of people to get through. 6 or 7 billion people in the world, and amongst all the other healers as well. But I would like to get it all down in a book, get it all down in training courses, so that people can learn how to do this for themselves. Because at the end of the day, you can come to somebody when you get stuck, or when you have a block, or you need some extra help. But fundamentally, all of us need to empower ourselves to do it for ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And that's my goal. I want to help the world to do that for themselves, and that's really what it's all about. We're all learning, we're all experiencing, and it's much more empowering if you can do it for yourself.
Now, besides some of those problems, another problem we have here, and you might have it in Britain too, is drugs, like the heroin and meth and those type of things. Do people come to you with those problems also?
Addiction kinds of things?
No, not really. But I mean, when you're talking about drugs, I mean, I've had people with drinking excessive alcohol, which is a drug in itself. But
right.
And I've had people with addictions. It's all addiction energy. And it's just about getting back to that root cause, that program, because you can treat with coping mechanisms at a conscious level, with addiction, but you've really got to get to the root cause, or the addiction will move on to another addiction, and then another addiction,
Yeah, that's true.
and so on. So you've got to get deeper. So again, it's just a program. It's finding the root causes of those things and changing those.
Just another symptom of the same sort of problems, right?
Well, when it really comes down to it, the same sort of beliefs are running throughout. It's just a case of finding what the programs are, what the blocked emotions are. No matter what, you can almost get sidetracked by what the issue is sometimes, and you've just got to keep pulling it back to, what's going on underneath, what's caused this, and clear it. And talking therapies aren't the only way of doing it. There are lots and lots of brilliant healing mechanisms out there, and it's finding the one that suits you to get to the root cause. But you have to get to the root cause at a subconscious level. You have to do it. The subconscious has, you know yourself, Mike, it has 95% of the power. It's the real engine room, and it's that constant playback, that constant recording of all the rubbish that we've put in there. And thoughts only ever think about thoughts. So if we can change those thoughts at a subconscious level, then, stuff changes so tangibly, when you shift those subconscious thoughts. Experiences can change overnight. Situations can change overnight when you change that root cause.
That's very true. I know on your website, and Mike put down below.
I'll have a link in the description.
Of where your website is. You have a number of different videos, little clips of how individuals can help themselves. I'm just curious, for the listening audience, do you have something very simple individuals can do that you'd like to demonstrate?
What, demonstrate now?
Yeah. I like the one video where you're talking about the energy forces around us and how we can tell our subconscious mind either yes or no questions, or what our thinking is. And I was just wondering if there's something that you do on a daily basis, or mental kind of things that help you to stay focused.
Well, we can to stay focused. Oh my gosh.
Too many things. Which one are you going to choose?
There's a lot of things. One of the things I'm doing on my YouTube and my website is I want to build up a portfolio of lots of different techniques that people can use to help themselves, so they can learn to heal themselves. And it's finding, again, the right technique for the person. And one of the things I use on a daily basis with clients is muscle testing. And it's originated from kinesiology, I think back in the 1950s. And it's about, it's not a fail-proof method, but it's a good indicator of testing your subconscious mind to find out, to get a yes, no response, or a strong, weak response. And there's a multitude of ways of testing out there, but one of the most effective ways is standing up straight. And if you're standing straight and you're feeling nice and rooted to the ground, and you say out loud, yes, 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 you should fall forward naturally. If you say no, 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 you should fall backward naturally. So not forced, so just allowing your body to fall forwards or backwards to get a yes, no response. And
you have a video on that, don't you?
I do have a video on that, and if you visit my website or my YouTube channel, you can see that video there that I go through a couple of muscle testing techniques.
And what you're doing is you're sort of communicating with your subconscious.
Yeah, it's kind of a direct line into the subconscious mind, and I guess in hypnotherapy you'd call it an ideomotor response, in a way where you're getting the subconscious to communicate with you directly, but it's a kinesiology response, so you're getting a yes/no response direct from the subconscious mind. But you've got to be careful not to consciously control it. And just relax and allow your body to go one direction or the other, and not to question either, because if you question, then you are questioning the programs that are already in there, and you don't want to be questioning programs because they might not be beneficial programs to you. So you only ever test on statements, and that way you can find, you can get a yes/no response as to what statement is running in your subconscious mind. Then you get a good indicator of why something maybe is happening the way it's happening in your everyday life.
Now, I've heard another theory or a practice that may be related to that. If, say like you have prescriptions or food or whatever, and you want to know if it's good for you or not, you hold it, and if you feel it pulling towards you, it's good. If you feel like it wants to go away from you, then it's bad. If you just like hold it neutral, and if it wants to pull towards you, then
That's interesting.
that's sort of like the fall back and forward thing you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I use it. I use it going around the supermarket, and you can do it quite subtly so that people don't see you sort of swaying back and forwards. But I use the same process that I just talked about with the yes and the no. And for instance, I can't take gluten in bread, and I can pick up a loaf of bread and I hold it to me, sort of, looking around the supermarket, and I just say my body loves this. And I get a yes or a no.
I see.
Or I can pick up a vegetable, my body loves this, and I get a yes or a no. So I'll fall forwards or fall backwards. And that's a great way of finding out what your body loves. But again, it's still going back to your beliefs at some level.
That's interesting.
As well.
That probably explains why my family loves sauerkraut, but when I go to pick it out, I'm like this. Here's your sauerkraut. But
Perhaps you've had a bad experience with sauerkraut at some moment or another in your life.
it could have been. It sounds like you'll have to delve into that experience as an intuitive healer.
Yeah.
And as a mentor, what would you like to leave the audience with? What are some words of wisdom you would like to share to our viewing audience?
I think it's something. It's keep it simple. Keep coming back to basics, and that's something I'm very big on.
That's a good
we
point.
can all get carried away with, particularly in this whole ascension process, and this is something very dear to my heart. There's an awful lot written about this whole ascension process that's going on at the moment, and what we can do is we can almost escape from ourselves by looking to be saved in this whole ascension process that's going on. So you can read a lot of comments from people, particularly if you're on Facebook, where people say, oh, that's the reason I'm having this symptom, or that's the reason that's going on, or that's, when we get to X or Y dimension, then it's all going to magically disappear and I'm going to be in this state of bliss. And it really isn't going to happen. It's the frequency of everything is rising. The universe is ascending, the Earth's ascending, and everything else. But stuff isn't just going to magically disappear. And there's a danger of looking outside of yourself too much in a way to be saved instead of doing the internal work. And I think it's, we need to be focusing sometimes more on ourselves and bringing it down to earth and bringing it back to basics all the time. How am I feeling? Why am I feeling like this? How am I going to let it go and move on? So I would say keep getting back to basics. Keep everything simple. If it gets too complicated, if it gets too otherworldly, then we're living on this earth right now. We're dealing with everyday stuff right now, and we're here to experience life and experience joy. And if we're not experiencing joy, if we're not experiencing this life fully right now, then we need to be looking at why we aren't. Keep bringing it back to now instead of getting carried away as what could happen in the ascension process when we get into X dimension, or or what's going to happen in 2032 or whatever. Keep it now. How are you feeling right now? If you're not experiencing joy right now, then why you're not experiencing joy right now, and keep coming back to you and keep coming back to basics. That's my
I think that's
Because that's we only have now,
Yeah.
and there's so many
I think that's good.
people or religions that you're working for a payoff later.
yeah.
And what we have is now, and we need to be present in the moment.
And we have to keep our thoughts focused on what we feel we are rather than
Yeah.
what we feel we're not.
Yeah.
Too often, it's very easy for all of us to feel we're not good at this, we don't do well at that, and we're constantly berating ourselves when in reality,
What am I good at?
Yeah, you're right. And just like what you're saying, is undoing some of those emotional feelings is very, very important, because then it can make our life better. It can make our life, our living.
Yeah, and sometimes all it takes is a shift in perception. If we're focusing on what we don't have or what we don't want, then of course the focus is going in the wrong direction. Just by a really simple shift in perception and focus, the whole vibration changes, and we can attract different experiences to us immediately. And it does work, and it does happen, and very tangibly. So just shifting that focus, bringing that gratitude every single morning when you wake up, bringing that gratitude. Last thing at night, be thankful for everything, absolutely everything. And then you're in that gratitude vibration, and then you're just going to keep attracting a much higher vibration to you all the time. So just a little shift is all it takes sometimes to change everything that's happening around you.
I see a lot of problems with fear and people being paralyzed by fear. It's like, well, if I go this way and I'm scared of it, then something bad will happen, so I'll just stay right here because I'm afraid of all this other stuff. So it's just a paralyzing thing. And if you just let go of fear and trust in the universe, and because it wants the best for you.
Yeah, and again, you can start. You can start in a very basic way. With the fear is being thankful for what you do have. Again, you can take that fear and you can say, well, actually, let's find some good in that situation, or in that, within that fear. Let's find something to be grateful about, and then you just begin with the very tiniest piece of gratitude, and it will just grow and grow. And fear is often about control anyway. When we're fearing something, we're feeling out of control about something in some way. So just look for where you can shift the focus, and when you can shift that focus even a tiny amount, it will grow. And then bring more gratitude into that. And it's just really simple techniques, but they really do work.
You do bring up a point that we as human beings have gotten away from really appreciating what we have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We take for granted our loved ones. We take for granted our jobs, the things that we have, the toys that we play with, the technology. And we assume it's always been there when it has not.
It's right. Like I've heard the quote. It's something like, you don't want what you don't have. Learn to want what you have.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a very good. Yeah.
In
That's
this
because
holiday season.
Yeah, we're always looking outside of ourselves, for ways to be fulfilled, without realizing that it's all in here. We just have to get back to recognizing it's all in here.
Yeah.
So it's just that, again, it's that shift of focus. What do I have? Thank you for having this roof over my head, for the food in my stomach. It's really getting back to really basic stuff like that. But then it grows, and that gratitude grows, and you find that inner peace.
Yeah, I see a lot of people going, well, everything would be good if I only had this, or if this only would happen, then it would be okay. But stuff never happens.
Right. That's right.
Well, not never, but it doesn't satisfy it. It's always something else. There's always something down the road that if I only had that now, it would be better.
The grass is always greener on the other side.
Right.
we want to have you back on the show. I know that you're working on a book, and that you have more videos that you're going to be coming on your web page, etc.
Because you're kind of transforming the way you do things too.
Yeah, it's funny because my work is evolving a lot. You know, it evolves over time anyway. But I've got new stuff that's coming in right now. That I've already received. I've had some lucid dreams. I've had some symbols given to me, and I've got a new healing mechanism I'm taking out into the world hopefully next year. And I'm writing that at the moment, and there's more. I know there's more coming in, and I've got other channeling connections which are starting to happen as well, with some very interesting beings. So I think next year is going to be a fascinating year for bringing some new stuff.
You're very much sounds like it.
For lots of us, yeah. So yeah, my work is evolving all the time, and I'm bringing in new stuff into my work all the time. So yeah, it's all changed.
So
in a good way.
You can Skype. How do people get in touch with you for some assistance?
Sorry, Patrick. You can email me at caroline@carolinecousins.com, or you can contact me via my website, which is www.transformationalenergyexpert.com. So you can get in touch with me there quite easily,
Okay.
and then I'll come back to you. We can discuss what you need.
And Mike is right down below. Is going to be putting all that information on. Carolyn, it has been a pleasure, and I really appreciate your coming on. And I know you're very, very busy, but I appreciate your time that you've spent with us. Any final words of wisdom?
More words of wisdom.
Just milking it, aren't you?
That's right.
just be kind to yourself. We beat ourselves up too much, because we're always judging ourselves in this world. So just become more consciously aware, more mindful of when you're judging yourself. And when you're judging others, you're always judging yourself at some level, and it gets projected out onto others. So just be a little bit kinder to yourself, and maybe think that every single person that's on the earth that you come into contact with is another version of you.
Good point.
And how would you like to be treated if you were them?
Right.
A bit more respect in the world, and the world would be a nicer place.
We hope you come back on the program, as your work progresses, etc. Mike, fantastic guest we've had.
Lots of good stuff.
Yes. So again, thank you, Carolyn. We're with Carolyn Cousins. She's an intuitive mentor and a well-being coach. Been involved in a variety of different things. You can Skype her for a session. And I think this isn't the last that we will see of Carolyn. Carolyn, thank you.
Thank
Okay, and
you both so much. It's been an absolute privilege to be invited onto your show, and I'm very, very grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone for watching. See you next time.